Welcome back, everyone. You found Howdy Partner. Even if you didn't want to, you found it. You're here. You're with us. This is AWS's way to highlight all of the partners in our Amazon Partner Network. We've got another exciting show for you today, every Monday and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific. We're joined today with me. I'm AM. I am a Partner Solutions Architect here at AWS. Also, Andrew over there.
Hello.
Andrew, what do you do?
I'm also a Partner Solutions Architect here with AWS.
There you go. And we've got a new friend who's showing off his shirt down there, giving you an idea, a spoiler, if you will, on who is on today's episode. Also, in the title of the Twitch stream, that's probably not really a spoiler. Then we got Lee. Lee, tell us about yourself.
Hey everyone, yes, I'm on the engineering team at Pulumi. We're very excited to be a part of the show today.
And if you're new here, if you've never watched Howdy Partner, or if you're returning, we always feature anything that can make your life as an AWS developer or architect easier on AWS. All the services that you work with and love and know often have partner solutions that can make them easier to utilize. And today, Andrew, we're talking about infrastructure as code, right?
Absolutely. And so I'm actually really excited to talk about Pulumi because I think they've done a wonderful job at making, the life and the process of automating infrastructure a lot easier, especially if you're a developer. So I think a place to start would be talk about kind of what is infrastructure as code and why is it important, right?
Yeah. Let's do that.
The textbook definition of infrastructure as code is it's the process of managing and provisioning infrastructure through machine-readable definition files rather than your physical hardware or having to write a bunch of scripts, right? And so, if you think about it in the modern day, this is a huge part of, it should be a huge part of anyone's backup and disaster recovery plan. It should be a huge part of automating infrastructure and making sure that you choose the right infrastructure as code provider is essential in this process. And so I guess in my mind, there's really 5 key benefits of having infrastructure as code as part of your infrastructure strategy. And if I miss something, please feel free to fill me in. But in my mind, these would be the 5 benefits, right? And so you have visibility, stability, scalability, security. And in my mind, this is definitely one, but this is more being able to have more transactional process with your infrastructure as code provider. And so when we talk about visibility, you could sure open up your console and see all the resources that are defined in your app. But in my mind, it would also be a lot easier if you could just see everything within a template, right? So this is your web server, this is your database, these are the roles that are defined within your account, right? Just having that one source of truth in a template makes it a lot easier for your whole organization, right? Stability is really important too, because one of the cool things you can do is you can enable version control because everything's written in code. So you can use something like Git and create that level of stability, whether you need to roll back a change in your infrastructure or whether you want to add a new feature. You have that option when you go the route of infrastructure as code, right? And so, as your team scales, as your organization scales, as your business scales, you want the ability to be able to scale your infrastructure as code as well. And that's kind of one of the benefits that, using infrastructure code gives you is that because everything is written in code, you can add it and subtract things as your organization grows. So that's a huge point there, right? And obviously security is top of mind for everybody. And in my mind, security will always be level 0. But again, infrastructure code gives you a unified template for how you deploy your architecture, right? So you define and you decide who has access to what. You define and you decide, how you do specific things within your template. And so security obviously a really important one. And then I think the last one that sticks out to me in my mind is infrastructure of code and the provider your provider of choice creates resources on your behalf, but also waits for those resources to stabilize when they start. And so basically the process, it verifies that the provisioning of those resources is successful, and then it will also let you know if there's a failure and then gracefully roll the infrastructure back to what it was before. And so I think the one thing that always stuck in my mind when I was first learning about the world of infrastructure as code is, as of right now, everything's written in JSON and YAML. And so kind of having to look at JSON and YAML all day, every day is pretty painful. It's almost like soul draining if you look at it for too long, right? And so one of the reasons why I'm super excited to have Pulumi on the show is because they've made this process much more user-friendly, and it's much more enjoyable to work with. Because as I'll have Lee explain in just a minute here, JSON and YAML are no longer your only options. And so with that said, I'll go ahead and hand over to Lee.
Yeah, I just want to. Sorry, Lee. I just wanted to jump in real quick, real fast, and just say, I think if you use JSON or YAML, like you're all good too. Like it totally is up to you what you utilize for your tools, right? Like I think though, what we're going to learn from Lee is that an imperative programming language model brought to that infrastructure as code layer unlocks a lot of different things that you can do on top of what exists today in JSON or YAML driven things like CloudFormation, for example. But I think, Andrew, to touch upon like why would I even use infrastructure as code? I think there's a piece there that's important, right? To talk through where, just a few years ago, it wasn't possible to track changes to your infrastructure.
That's fair. Yep.
Because maybe you weren't even, the cloud didn't exist at that point, or you weren't using the cloud. You still had on-prem, and there's still many people that have to utilize things like that. So, this advent of cloud services and being able to essentially hit the API of all these services to generate them even is pretty novel. So there are some cutting edge shops that have been doing this for a while, and there are some people who I think are just now getting into this. But it really operationalizes the ability to spin up the same environment, right? Like not everything can be a Docker container. Not everything can be
100%.
right. Like not everything can be just strapped inside of a container and away you go. You still have to have infrastructure for some of these things, like a file system, for example. It's really hard to build a containerized version of a file system. I'm sure there are ways to do it. I'm sure everyone in chat will let me know. But spinning those things up in a reliable way is, I think, at the heart of what infrastructure as code is. And I'm also excited to hear what Lee has to teach us today. I'm also really excited because Lee, it's like hands-on demo all day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The goal today is to really just do a lot of live coding and just run through a bunch of examples and kind of get an application up and running. And so that's what I'm hoping to do today. I'll spend a little bit of time just kind of going through some of the basics so we can talk a little bit about what Pulumi is and how we think about how the model works, but then pretty quickly dive into just writing some code and getting some stuff working.
So if you're new, or if you've been here before, be sure and drop questions for Lee, and Andrew and I will graciously interrupt him.
Yeah, feel free to interrupt at any time, and happy to answer any questions in the chat. The other thing I was just going to note is what you talked about, AM, in terms of being able to just spin things up and down, is that we see a lot of people who have that kind of ephemeral stack pattern where they say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to spin up my dev stack, make sure it all works, and then blow it away, right? And so having that all as part of your IAC solution makes a ton of sense. That's actually, in fact, what we do for our own part of Pulumi. Is there's a SaaS aspect to it, and for our SaaS, like it's very easy to just spin up the whole SaaS stack and then just blow it away when you're done using it.
Yeah, that's like the ultimate place you usually want to get to, right? Like that's the end goal, I think. I think even for people who don't templatize their entire infrastructure, there's still ways to win, and still efforts that they can utilize and lessons they can learn from what you're going to teach us today, even to templatize part of their stack, right? I think every little step helps, personally speaking. But yeah, you wanna take it away?
Yeah. Yeah, let me share my screen and show a couple things real quick. So I'm just on the main Pulumi site. I think the main thing I wanted to talk about real quick was just kind of like the Pulumi model, real briefly, since we are talking about what is Pulumi. And so, Pulumi is infrastructure as code using real languages. So we talk about kind of, we support a number of real languages. We support the Node ecosystem, Python, Go, and .NET. So it's a large number of options you can choose from. We'll be talking about some of these concepts as we go through the day, like program, project, and stack. And so the idea is that you write a Pulumi program, which is what defines your infrastructure. You have a project, which basically is like, you could think of it as this is the structure of your program, and then there's a stack, which is an instance of your project. So, for example, like I could create you could have a very simple program which spins up, one S3 bucket, and you can have multiple stacks where one stack might be your dev stack, one stack might be your test stack, one stack might be your production stack, but they're all really using the same program, and that program is in that project. The project has other things in it that go with that program. So we'll get into some real examples here, so I won't spend any time on this. But the only other thing I want to show was there's this page, how Pulumi works, and this is kind of what we'll be doing today. Pulumi has a CLI and an SDK, and it also has a number of languages you can choose from. And so Pulumi is a desired state system. So basically, as your program executes, there's a deployed state, like it was like what was last deployed, and there's also a desired state that gets generated as part of running your program. And so what is happening is we are trying to move your infrastructure from the last known state to the desired state. So that's kind of what's happening every time we invoke the CLI. And the CLI will basically run your program in the language host and then interface with the various providers that we support. So obviously we'll be talking about AWS today, since I'm not sure we're going to be using these other ones. And so yeah, and one of the cool things about using real languages is actually, it's not really on this page, but one of the cool things about using real languages, we get all the benefits of using real languages. Like, so I'll show you in when we start using, we'll use VS Code, we'll get syntax highlighting, we'll get to use all the tools that you would have in a real language. So for example, we'll do some unit testing actually later on of our program to make sure that we're actually writing what we think we're writing. And so there's all the benefits you get. Type checking is another one. We'll have all these benefits as we write the program. I guess we could probably just jump straight into writing some of the stuff, unless you guys have any other questions or things you wanted to talk about.
Not so far, not yet.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's great. I will ask real quick, just you don't have to go deep into this, but when you say desired state, what does that really mean? What does that mean in the sense of what happens?
I think I was kind of wanted to mention that because I think a lot of people think about when they first see oh, you guys are writing infrastructure as code with real languages with any language. I think they kind of, sometimes people they're cautious about the idea oh, well, what if someone writes some crazy thing and I can't reason about what it's going to produce, because you can write anything in code. And it's really not like that, in the sense that while you could write some crazy loops and do various terrible things, at the end of the day, it is still trying to go from the current state to a desired state. And in fact, everything is still based on a state model, so that it is about moving from point A to point B. And for example, one of the commands in Pulumi is Pulumi stack exports. You can know what the state of your system is at any given point in time. So it's really not about this ephemeral, I don't understand what's happening, system.
Okay,
cool. So let's bring up some terminals here. And so what I wanted to try to build today, and actually, so full disclaimer, I have not tested any of this. I purposely wanted to do this as real as possible. So hopefully everything works. But I've not actually built any of this.
We actually had a question. I think this is again a little bit of a spoiler, but I know this because we talked about it ahead of time. Kangit15 wants to know what happens if somebody wrote one piece in Python, but the next engineer wants to write in Node.js. You're actually going to do that today, aren't you?
We're actually going to do that today. That is part of the plan. Is we'll build part of a project in Python, and we'll build part of a project in Node. And so one of the cool things about the multi-language features in Pulumi is that you can have teams that prefer different languages work together, and it'll all be okay. And in fact, you can even mix languages within the same project depending on what you're doing. So Pulumi programs should be in one language for that project. But like a good example would be you could have your Lambda function in one language, but your Pulumi program could be in a completely different language. And then on top of that, you can have different Pulumi programs in different languages as long as they're part of different projects. And we'll go into that today. Okay, so what I was going to do is start with just like a super basic example and then kind of work our way up from there. So my ultimate goal at the end of the day is to have a functioning web application, probably use React, because that's what I'm familiar with, but have a React web app that lets us get videos, and we'll have a way to like upload videos into an S3 bucket. And as part of uploading it, we'll end up processing that video to extract faces. So that's kind of like the idea is like you upload a video, it extracts faces, and then I don't know, like maybe we'll post those faces to this front-end web app or something like that. It's kind of like nebulous in my mind because I think it depends on how much time we have and how far we get. But let's
maybe that's like your thumbnail generator, right? You want a thumbnail with a face. So
yeah, exactly. Maybe that's like a thumbnail generator. So let's create the ingest side first. So we'll make this ingest. And so let's, so to create a new project in Pulumi, you just actually just do Pulumi new. That's the command line. So by the way, I guess since like not everyone's familiar with this, you can install Pulumi in various ways. The easiest is through Homebrew if you're on a Mac like I am. But obviously, if you just go to download and install, there's instructions for all the various OSs, and I've obviously got Pulumi installed already. So I'm going to run Pulumi new AWS Python. And that's going to create a new project for us in Python. So let me just make this a little bit bigger. And we'll call it ingest, and we'll say, ingest program for videos. And we'll create this in our dev stack, and we'll use US+2. And handily, this provides some suggestions to do this. So I'm going to create a virtual environment for everything. And I'm going to run this and finally run this. And you'll see that, when we basically use a template, and this created this template, and it basically, this is a minimal Pulumi program. It imports Pulumi AWS, which is an SDK package we can use for interfacing with AWS. And then we simply create a bucket by instantiating it in our program, and then we export this the ID of the program. So we can actually just run this. We can run Pulumi up. And it'll give us a preview of what it's going to create. It's a very simple stack. It has a stack and it has a bucket, and it's going to create these two things. We can say yes. And, it'll go ahead and create the S3 bucket, and now we have a bucket that's just been created based on the name I gave it. So one of the things Pulumi does is it does auto naming, and so we append a hexadecimal string to the end to make it a unique resource. So this helps us with doing things like we prefer to do creates. When you do a replacement, we prefer to first create the replacement to switch over to the replaced object, then delete the old object. And so auto naming helps do that in cases where you have instances like buckets where the names cannot conflict. Okay, so I guess like to really do our ingestion thing, we probably need to make this bucket writable. So we could do that, or I think maybe we'll skip that part since like I don't want to just stream a writable bucket on create a bucket that anyone can write to while I'm streaming. So maybe instead we'll just focus on writing the actual application logic first. And so we want to have this bucket trigger on, we want a notification trigger on this. So actually, maybe I can just skip to the thing that the person was asking about earlier about using different programs. So let's do that real quick. Let me go back to my terminal, and I'll create another one called thumbnailer, let's call it. And we can create a new TypeScript program here.
I like that you've got the built-in templates there. That's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super convenient. And so when we do this, it installs the dependencies and everything, and it's kind of nice and easy. So here, instead of doing this, we'll use what's called a stack reference. And so you can see earlier when I did this, we had this output which had the bucket name as part of the output, and because I exported it. And so this is basically a stack export. So if I actually go to the Pulumi console, you can kind of see, for this particular stack, it has an output, and that's part of the stack, and that's kind of part of what we're managing with the stack. Is this big enough? I can make it slightly bigger, but yeah. So this is part of what the stack is. It has this output value, and so if I go back to code, here I can actually make a stack reference. So I can have a stack ref. And this is a stack reference, and you can see, like, one of the cool things I mentioned, like, since this is real code, like, we have all the nice autocomplete things that you get like in real code. So this is a reference to the other stack. So the other stack was called, and this can be called anything actually. This name is scoped that I have here. This name is scoped to within my program, so it could be named anything. But here I have to give it the actual name of the stack, and I think we called that stack was called ingest dev. And then now we're going to want to get the bucket name from there. So, and output. And that name of the output was bucket ID, if I recall correctly. Bucket name. Just kidding. And let's just make sure this works. So we should be able to run this. This is where I'm like, by the way, I should also mention I only joined Pulumi like 4 months ago. So anything where I'm like doing terrible things, it's probably because I don't actually know what I'm doing. So okay, so the stack reference should be organization project stack. So I forgot to my organization's myself. That's my organization, and then this is the name of the project, and this is the name of the stack. So
not to throw you too far off course here. We're getting questions around. I've been feeling a little bit in chat around the CDK, the AWS CDK versus Pulumi, which, my opinion, I don't, and this is what I said in chat, I don't think it needs to be a versus, right? I think both have features and things that we either, maybe doesn't. So I said you really should evaluate, on your own, with whatever needs you have. Take a look at CDK, take a look at Pulumi, see which one has the feature set you need. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind that Pulumi offers? I said obviously there's support for other environments that aren't AWS, right? That CDK doesn't have.
There's on the screen I'm sharing. Like, if you want to get super deep into it, I would read. We have a fairly deep comparison of CDK versus what we do on Pulumi. So I think I probably don't want to spend too much time on the stream talking about this. I think kind of like the biggest difference that I think that is probably going to be mentioned in a doc like this or anywhere is kind of like, we're not trying to transpile to JSON or YAML. Like, this is actually executing in code as we're doing it. That's part of the execution model. And so as resources are getting created, we're going off and trying to create those resources too. So that there's a resource engine model. It's not about transpiling to JSON or YAML. So that's probably one of the big differences. And yeah, if you want to read about other differences, I would go ahead and try to take a look at this. And as you said, AM, also just evaluating the tools based on what you're trying to do.
Right.
That's obviously going to be a big part of it as well.
I think just to compare the two never makes sense. It really depends on what you're trying to do. And then also, I think it's safe to use both in some instances. Sometimes you'll need something different. It just depends. My question, though, I wanted to ask, you're actually calling out to API, so you're not actually and if this is getting into the weeds of how Pulumi works, and it's not on topic, but you're not actually generating something like CloudFormation underneath the covers and then.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. So it is calling to the API under the hood. Yep.
That's
so
really
anyways,
interesting.
I want to share this real quick, just to kind of answer the question real fast about like how would the two languages interface, because like now you have a reference to this other project that was written in Python, and now you can build whatever else you want here in Node. I do want to come back to the Python one though, because I think what I was going to show is I had built earlier. So the one pre-work I did do is I had run, I had built some like example code around, and I think I had it in my Scratch workspace. I had built some example code around just getting like some basic face detection to work. And so I'm gonna like I'm gonna copy and paste this because I didn't want to like spend too much time figuring this out. And so this code is basically doing that. We're gonna have to tweak a little bit. This is working off of a live video cam, and actually, like I should cite where I got this from. This is from this this blog article. So this person kind of built a CPU-based face detection system, and basically I took the gist that was posted in here. I think it's somewhere down here. Can't find it, but this person has a gist that's referenced that I copied and pasted from, and so we're gonna try to use that as our Lambda to do some of this processing. So that's
the cast of friends at the top.
Yeah, they ended up adding in more like stuff. So they ended up adding like actual face, like which face is which.
Yeah.
But we're not going to do that. We're just going to try to like extract faces out.
I don't usually give hot takes, but I'm not a fan of Friends. I'm just going to put that out.
Whoa.
It's okay if you are. It's okay.
Whoa, yeah, I was going to say that's like one of the most popular shows of all time, and you're going to go and say that. That's
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Probably will get a lot of angry tweets for that. That's okay. I'm willing to put my my lack of Friends support out there.
Yeah. So what I wanted to do. No, it's okay. What I wanted to do next is actually set up the notifications on this bucket so that we can actually do some some actioning against it. So if I haven't actually done this recently, so I need to look at the docs.
This is actually I don't know why, but it's like one of the classic hard problems in AWS is creating a bucket and also the notification to send to Lambda as a trigger event from that bucket, because you run into the circular dependency in CloudFormation at least. So
yeah, so I want to create a bucket notification. I'm just going to go here and copy and paste from here because I think this is going to be more or less what we want to do. So we have this topic. So we'll call this video ingest topic. And see if this is right. So we'll allow publish to the topic. Okay, great. So that looks like it should just be good.
Okay. So this is actually publishing the event from S3 to an SNS queue. Or sorry, an SNS notification.
Yeah.
All right, not SNS.
Yeah. So
SQS queue.
Yeah. Yes. This is SNS notification. So and then that way we can then listen to it from a Lambda, right? So that's kind of my plan at least. So we'll see. Actually, this is actually it's funny that in TypeScript, there's a bunch of kind of like built-in convenience functions for this. But I think here we'll just do it. We'll just go ahead and like do the work here to build this ourselves. So we have this, and we also have so we have this, and then we also have SNS. Actually, I'll just do this. Maybe this is easier. That'll make it easier to write all this stuff. Okay, so we have our topic, and we have our notification, flow. Let's see if I miss anything here. Oh, and here we need the bucket ID, right? So this is referring, so that's actually all wired in correctly. So if I run Pulumi up now, we should see actually like two things are unchanged, and those two things that are unchanged were the bucket and the stack. Like those things don't change, right? If we look at kind of like if we think about kind of, those things haven't been touched, but we do have this new topic in the certification. So that's actually the correct preview. And so great, we created this topic and we created this notification. So now let's create the Lambda function that's going to listen to this topic and do the face detection stuff that we want to do. And so go back to the docs again. Like haven't actually. If I planned this out, I would have already known like exactly what I wanted to do, but I didn't. So you can. This is how you know it's real, right?
Yeah.
And so with Lambda, we want to create a function, and then so let's go ahead and do that.
This is how you would do this, like if you were actually.
Yeah, this is what you would end up doing. And I think the thing I always forget is like how we actually trigger the Lambda.
It would be off the SNS topic.
Yeah. I think I don't remember is how you wire up the triggering. So I think it must be like under. I think it's this event invoke. This is where I think it's one of these. Let's see. Sorry, this is where I'm like trying to remember like how this works in terms of what you actually want to do to invoke the function. I think it must be event source mapping. That doesn't look right because this refers to Dynamo, Kinesis, and SQS. Sorry, guys. Just trying to remember. I'm like, wait, how does this work? Like, how do you actually do this? Or is it part of SNS?
Let's see, I'm Googling.
Maybe that's what
I found a guide, Lambda and serverless events. Yeah, aws.sns.topic.onEvent. Looks like that is a class on or a method on the topic class.
You're talking about Pulumi itself?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That is the convenience function I mentioned in. So we can actually look at so we can go deep into the internals here, but this is actually what I mentioned in terms of like that's a convenience function in Node. I don't know if that's a convenience function in Python. I can't actually remember. See, I don't think it is. So the thing you're talking about is actually like if we look at the Node one in comparison, there's like a nice little topic subscription thing here. Sorry, in Lambda rather itself, if I recall correctly. And there's this thing called like
from Mallory that we can get to potentially, and if not, I can look up and answer offline. But Mallory, they ask, can you create an SNS topic and also hook up an email subscription to the topic?
Yeah, I think you should be able to. I think basically anything you can do in terms of like, interacting with the AWS resources, you should be able to do with Pulumi.
Nice.
So the thing I was trying to recall or trying to show was kind of like the here SNS mixins, and so the on event thing lives in here, and so this is like a mixin that's like kind of on top of the base model. Though what we could do is look at how this works. So it creates a topic event subscription, and that's actually what we need. So that's a good reminder of like what I need is this topic event subscription. And what this does is it takes a topic and a topic subscription, and you can see what this does is it actually just does all the wiring here for us. So we can do the same thing. So topic subscription is that's the concept I couldn't remember. So this is what I actually need is this. So let's go ahead and create that.
I'm going to go ahead and say that I helped a little bit with that one.
Yeah, for sure. No, that actually was helpful. And so we can see like here, here's the endpoint, the protocol, etc. So like we're going to go ahead and do that. So we'll call this subscription. So we have this notification that's going to get fired. We want to subscribe a function to it, right? So and I don't know if we need most of these. I think the required ones are resource name, and then the resource options, which include we need this endpoint, and then we can have the protocol, which is going to be Lambda, right? So just to do this. And then I think we can get rid of most of these other ones. We need a topic, obviously. So this should be the ARN of the SNS which describes to. So that was earlier we had the topic ARN. And then here, I don't actually know. Let's see below. Oh, by the way, someone was asking about email. I guess I was wrong because you can't do email, at least from this perspective. Okay. And let's see. I think this might actually require AWS topic subscription. I'm assuming it's going to be like the Lambda's ARN or something like that, but I don't actually know off the top of my head, so I'm just going to like look. So it's the ARN of the function. So we're going to do that. So we need a function. So let's create that too. Lambda function. This is AWS. And I had this open earlier. Let's go back. Oops. Okay, so we're going to create a function, and it's going to be some name, and we'll point it at some code.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how you actually wire up getting like your code into zip and everything.
This is the name of the entry point, so we'll call this like handler, and the role. So we'll have to create that, and then we'll have a runtime, and this will be Python 7. I don't think I need anything else. I will probably need code since we're gonna have to point at some code.
Right.
So we'll do that too. So we'll leave all that there for now. And then we'll also create this role. And sorry. This is where I'm like, maybe I should have prepared ahead of time for this and just had all this written.
No, all good. That's how you know it's real.
I know this is like maybe not the most fun stuff. I promise we'll get into the fun stuff really soon. But oops.
It's great.
So yeah, this is just role. So just call it Lambda role. I don't think it needs anything else actually. Oh, it needs an assume role policy potentially. Assume role policy. And this is where I'm like, oh boy, I don't remember how to write. I guess we'll copy some of this. This looks pretty close actually to what we want. Where we probably just want to change this to be, the principle should be, let me just look up like Lambda basic execution rule.
As we kind of reach, we're about 40 minutes in. Andrew, do you want to?
Okay, yeah.
As looking for this, do you want to summarize what we've done? Who are we? What if I just tuned in? What is this? What am I watching?
So welcome to, if you're just now tuning in, or if you're not familiar with who we are, my name is Andrew Park, Partner Solutions Architect here at AWS, and AM is also a Partner Solutions Architect here at AWS, and you are tuning in to Howdy Partner. This is a show where we like to showcase some of the cool things that our partners are doing, and today on the show we have Lee Zen with Pulumi. And today he is walking us through how you can create a few different applications using Pulumi. So if this is your first time, make sure to subscribe and welcome. Make sure to ask questions in the chat so we can answer all your questions.
Yeah, please put questions in chat. And Lee's doing all this live.
That's how you know it's real. You know, this is a stage. This is all in real time.
So I think we do need some policies for this this function. It's going to need to be able to read the bucket so we can actually like do stuff, and it's going to need to also be able to write CloudWatch logs and some stuff like that. So I think we can first attach this role. So we can do this. That one I know we need. So we can do that. Yeah, so we just use the managed ones. So and then on top of that, we can also add the S3. So that maybe we can just use all managed policies. So let's look up the managed policies.
Usually easier.
Yeah, exactly. Is this it? It's going to be the list. Yeah. Wait, that doesn't look right either. Manage policy.
I know there's a bunch of lists of them for Lambda in the SAM.
Yeah. Oh, maybe the SAM repository has it.
Yeah. There we go.
I don't know if this.
There's S3 read, S3 write.
But these are not like the ones I'm actually looking for is the named ones, like the one I just had with the execution.
Got it.
Like and basic execution, like this one. I wonder if I think the docs might have this actually. Let me take a quick peek. I don't recall. No. Okay, I'm going to cheat because I know there's another place that has this, which is in here. So I know I want this.
There you go.
This is in the Node SDK. So this actually refers, but this doesn't help me because I need the actual ARN. Okay, so this is the list. So I'll steal this because I'm cheating a little bit because I happen to know that lives there. That's okay. That's okay. So yeah, so let's attach some of these policies. So so we'll call this attach Lambda execution. And so I'll go back to my docs here. And so we're going to do a policy attachment. And here you can see we just do the ARN and the role. So yeah, ARN and roles. So the ARN, policy ARN, should be this. And the roles should be what we had earlier. Oh, is it, oh, sorry, lambda role. Okay, so actually let me get rid of some of this stuff real quick, because I think I want to make sure this at least works before I continue on. Oops. I expected word roles. Did I miss something? Is it not that argument? Policy attachment. Groups, roles. Oh, it's called a policy attachment, not a role policy attachment. Yeah. I think this is actually different. This is actually, yeah, a role policy attachment is actually like this, which is probably actually what I want. So actually, this is the simpler version. So let's actually change that to this, and it's the name. Okay, silly me. All right. So now we've attached now this will end up attaching that's one of the other cool things about, by the way, like going back to like, oh, why would you want to use something like Pulumi in terms of real code? Like we can actually try to execute it and just have it fail, like before we even try to do anything for real in the preview, because we know that syntactically, like that's just not going to work. So if you're using like YAML, in YAML, you could write anything and it like, will just be like, oh yeah, this is valid YAML. But that doesn't actually mean it's going to be valid code. And so here we can see that this is actually valid code as well. So now we have all that. I'm not going to execute that. I'm going to go back and add the other stuff I previously had, where I had this. So I want to add one more attachment to this, which is to add the S3, ability to read S3. So attach like S3 read, I guess. I guess we'll give it read write, because we're going to write up the thumbnails, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to do my real quick cheat thing here where it's like S3. I'll just give it S3 full access, even though that's probably not what I recommend, but you know, this is just an example. Okay, so now it has S3, and we'll have to call this something different. So we'll call this attach S3. Okay, and now we can write our function. So it has this role, and it's going to have this handler. It's not like this. Did I miss?
I think that code is actually an object. I saw it's like Pulumi.archive, I think.
Yes, this should be. That's correct. It should be a Pulumi.file archive. And we can basically have this be, so we'll create a new directory in here called just like func. And so this could be like func.
That's cool.
And so this will end up zipping everything here and upload that as the actual archive for the code. Unexpected function token. Oh, okay. This is right, because Lambda is a keyword in Python.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yes. That's pretty funny, actually. So I think you can see actually the right way to do this, we have an underscore here to differentiate that. That's like the fix, and yeah. So that's how we avoid that. So let's Pulumi up this. And this should actually work, I think, but I hope this works. Oops, did I miss a Python 37? So again, this is before I've executed, like, this is before I've even attempted the actual deployment. Like, this is still part of the preview. It's saying like, hey, don't do this.
Right.
And I'm missing endpoint. Oh, right, because we don't have the lambda's arm. So, oops, what do I call this? A lambda function. So again,
yeah, I'll say
warned about things that don't work.
Doing something like mistyping Python 3.7 without the dot, and if you're working in something like CloudFormation, you wouldn't find that out until you tried to deploy the.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And okay, so they still had something mess up. So I guess to prove the reverse of the point, I wonder if somehow I did something wrong with the role creation. I wonder if this policy is like I wrote it wrong somehow. I think we'll find out in a sec. But otherwise, I think, let me start actually writing the code for this function. We'll call this detect. And I'm just going to copy and paste everything from here. And we'll also create a requirements txt. And I'll copy the one from here. And I'm just going to confirm that.
So Unicode 007 is pointing out that serverless framework also has some of this deploy functionality for serverless applications. But this person also says that Pulumi seems much more extensive. We had serverless framework actually on an earlier episode. They're great. I love Austin. Austin is one of my favorite.
Don't tell Austin.
I love Austin. But yeah, I mean, they're hyper focused on serverless applications and deploying out serverless workloads. Whereas Pulumi, it's essentially all the AWS services. Anything be it container workloads, if you're just deploying out to, and spinning up EC2 instances, if you're doing all kinds of different types of workloads, not necessarily just serverless.
I think I didn't realize that you couldn't actually do that, where it says unable to validate the following destination configurations. The reason was because you can't have JSON strings with leading spaces.
Oh.
So I don't know if that. I think it was this. I had this on a separate line. It seemed like that, and that was the difference. Like now the role created, so that's pretty funny.
Oh.
And of course, everything else failed creating after that because everything depends on having this role exist. I'm guessing this is okay.
IAM is foundational to everything, right?
This, I guess, I was expecting to possibly see, just because I don't have anything actually like set up here correctly in terms of like what you would upload. So let's try to get that going, and then hopefully we'll be done with this part of the example. And then actually, like, everything from here is easy, I think. So we'll find out in a sec. Let me actually minimize this because this keeps getting in the way. So what I wanted to do now is get this code to work where I have this detect. And so I need to have like, I'll have this like main, and we have this handler. Yeah, I'm gonna guess it did not like how I had that set up. So let's do this. And this is where I guess like we can actually even just use the Pulumi examples repo, because I haven't done this in a while. So let's just take a look at some Python examples. And I'm guessing there's, some like maybe let's see, is there an example of this? Not what I want. Oh, okay. Surprisingly, that actually doesn't embarrass myself just now. There is actually an example where we have Lambda with everything else but Python. So I'll definitely have to contribute this back because I don't actually see that. Funnily enough,
You're
step functions.
you're
Oh,
building
here we do have one.
pull request as
We do have this.
Oh, okay. There you
We
go.
do have this. Yeah. So, oh, I see. Right. Okay. So I should have done this, I guess is what I should have done. Let me just fix that. So this should be, okay, so this is a little tricky. It's because you need to have everything in that, like.
It's a full zip file, not just a.
Yeah. So I think
of the folder.
Yeah, exactly. This needs to be like, it can't be a zip of the folder. It needs to be a zip of the thing, like at that folder. Current. Yeah. So this is what I actually want.
You got an extra code there too.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Code equals code.
I was like, I screwed something up when I typed, like, when all the red squiggly showed up. I was like, what did I screw up?
Pure programming.
Okay.
That's what it's all about.
Okay, but the other thing I need to do is figure out how to actually get the handler set up. So here, I'm just going to also take a look at how this is done in the example. So it's like hello.handler. Because I actually haven't written a Python Lambda function in a long time. Oh, right, because it has to be the name of the module. So yeah. I would have definitely messed that up too. It's the name of the module, not just the name of the function. So it's func.handler in our case. And the handler takes an event in a context. Let's do that. And we'll also import detect. Actually, I forgot how relative imports work in Python off the top of my head. Do you happen to remember? Is it just like this import tech? Like, is it just like this?
I think without the dot.
Without the dot?
And Python for sure was with the dot, right?
It is just dot.
Oh, that's my bad. Oops.
From dot import. Yeah. Okay. Doesn't seem to like this though. I guess maybe it's like from import. There we go. Okay. And so here, I think, oh, I didn't install all the, okay, let me just do this here. This is where I'm like, oh, okay, I should have had this definitely working the way I wanted it to. So instead of, there's a bunch of random code here that does all the predictions. What we actually want to do is here, change this to to not be the video capture, but to actually like read from the S3 file. And so let's see, what is the best way to do that? The event will have the file in there. So I think we can just assume we pass that into this like function. So let's call this, this is like the example code I had originally. So let's make this into a function like def detect faces. And this will take a file name. And this is where I need to recall cd read video. So this is should be video capture open. Yeah, so this is what we want. Okay, so we'll do this. And then so we can basically, the rest of the code should just work, right? The same way. And then instead of doing IAMShow, we'll have to write it back out. And so I think like.
Does that file need to be in the local file system?
Yeah, this will have to be in the local file system. So we'll have to write some additional code before this to like copy it from S3. So I'll do that in the handler. and then here we'll also need to write it back out, and we'll have to do some. Maybe I shouldn't have tackled this as the example now. That I'm thinking about it. But that's okay. It's okay. Like we'll figure this out, right? So maybe what we should just do is like import photo here, and add that to our requirements.
Yeah, you definitely you picked a pretty hefty use case here.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
nice.
realizing now, like this is actually getting pretty complicated. Let's import photos, and I don't remember what the versions are. Let's say it's like 3.
I think we have a question in the chat actually. So
I'm hoping someone like in chat actually is like way better at Python than I am and just knows this.
Chat,
a question from the chat.
Quiet. Yeah.
Is Pulumi similar to Terraform or CloudFormation, but written imperatively instead of declaratively? Or does Pulumi do something different?
Yeah, I think I guess like I would say a couple things. Like it is very similar. I think we're dealing with infrastructure as code, and so obviously there's going to be a lot of similarities there. I think kind of where it's different is really around one of the big differences is that it's written imperatively instead of declaratively. As I mentioned, it still ends up being a desired state model. But the other big differences obviously are because you're using real code, then you get all the benefits of real code. And so you get syntax highlighting, you get debugging, you get unit testing, you get all those things that you would normally get without having to do anything extra. And so you get to work in like the language of your choice, right? And so you're hopefully already familiar with those tools, and people are right now seeing how I'm not familiar with Python that much actually. But the whole thing is like I want to show like the two like differences. Oh, it's 1. Oh, okay. I wanted to show the two like kind of like the being able to use in the two languages, and now I'm like
regretting it.
Now I'm like regretting that. It's actually like I should have just stuck to like one language instead of trying to do both. But it's okay. It's okay. We're like we're learning some stuff here. Okay,
Yeah.
so now we installed.
You get a bunch of stuff like for loops, right? Like just think about that. Like if you need multiple buckets, for example, or you need multiple of anything, right? Doing that in a declarative language like JSON or YAML, you have to do 10 entries, right? Like for each of those. But with an imperative programming language, you can just do a for loop over a range of 10, right? And then spit out the same requirement without having to write individually all these things.
So let's use Bodo to write out the files to S3. I guess like what is the right way to do this? Is it like S3 object, I guess? That doesn't feel right, I guess, because I'd have to do this and then okay, well let's try this. So what will happen is up here, so we should create our S3 client here, and then basically for each frame as we get to here, so now we're dealing with on a per frame basis, we're gonna write out that frame. So here we have this, like let's call this O, and this is gonna be the bucket name. Okay, so maybe instead we'll just take the
downloading or uploading.
Yeah, I think I'll take the bucket name here actually and do both. So like what we'll do here is first we're going to download the file that we want.
Yeah.
And so that should be, so this should be the same thing here, like, input video object. I hope this works. It's going to be the bucket name, and then we'll take the key as well. So this will be the object, and then we'll have to download it, right? So there, I think there's like a, in a while since these photos, so there's a download file. So this looks like what we want. Yep. So And I think in Lambda, like these are like unique, right? So I can pretty much do whatever I want here. Like I should be able to do this.
Yeah.
And so we'll do some hacks here. I think this should work. I'm just going to do full disclaimer. This is not how I'd normally write code, I think. But I think for the purposes of this is just, let's just do this. And then here, then we can write it back out to the bucket. So let's try this. Like I guess the way I would do it is like I would say bucket name, and then we'll create a new key. And so like the frame key, and this can just be like the original key, right? And then we'll just prefix it with like the frame number. So I don't think I'm counting that. So let's do this like frame count. And so for each time we capture a frame, we'll like increase our frame count, right? So we'll just write the frame count out here. This will be the frame key. And then we can write the file. So it's o dot, I assume there's like a write file or something like that.
Yeah, the resource on
file. Oh, and so here, interestingly, we don't have a file yet. This is actually like, so we'll have to write this. This is like OpenCV, like write frame, like write image.
Oh, this is actually an interesting point from Sitter, S-I-T-R, in chat. They say, couldn't you just use key as the file name in your temp directory on Lambda on the Lambda function?
Oh yeah, you could. Yes, that's a good point. Yes, totally. Yes, good point. Okay, so it's CV2 I am right. So I am right. And we'll do this to some file name. And so like this will be the frame key. Okay, so I think that's what we want. The only thing that's not going to work, I guess, is this directory is not going to exist. Let's see this. So we don't have to deal with creating the directory, because otherwise, if you have an intermediate directory in there, it's going to want to create the directory. Yes, it's a good point that this could just be. Okay, so I think that's all there. And and finally, we have to upload this file. So so interesting, like a lot of the stuff we're going through right now actually isn't Pulumi oriented, but we're like, in case that wasn't obvious, like we're just writing like a Lambda function, but hopefully we'll get back into Pulumi in a sec here.
Yeah, let me take a minute to introduce what we're doing to anybody who's joining right now. You've found yourself at AWS's Howdy Partner. We're meeting today with Lee Zinn from Pulumi to talk about Pulumi and how to use it with AWS services. Pulumi is an infrastructure as code tool that lets you use an imperative programming language to actually generate infrastructure and build infrastructure in AWS, amongst other places as well. Right now, Lee is writing a Lambda function. So that Lambda function, it goes from an upload on an S3 bucket, which generates an event that gets sent to an SNS topic. That SNS topic then triggers a Lambda function, which is running a bunch of code that Lee just wrote to kind of do some detection in video, to grab a thumbnail of somebody's face and make a thumbnail for the video. All of the infrastructure, the SNS topic, the Lambda function, the S3 bucket, that's what's being generated by Pulumi.
Yeah, so the last thing I'm going to do is
chat, by the way.
The last thing I'm going to do is actually just finally get to the actual meat of this. So we want the S3, so it's records. Oh, okay, it's an array of things. So it's like the 0th record of this. And then there's the S3 part of that. And then there's a bucket.
That's where you get the key from.
And then the name. So this is the bucket. And then we have this key. So that's the other part. Whoops. Sorry. Oh,
I think there's another question in the chat. Is the frames count unique?
Is the frames count unique?
Yeah, from your detect.py
Right.
frames underscore count.
Oh yeah, I think for a single invocation it should be, I guess. Like it's a good question, I guess, like frame count. So I set it up at the very beginning when we do the text bases, and then kind of like as we go through each one, it'll just adding 1 to each frame. So I think it should work. Guess we'll find out in a sec. But I do think it should be unique in the sense that we're not doing anything too crazy there. And it's keyed off of this, so it'll be unique to the video file at least when we upload it. Let's give it a try, and like we'll find out in a sec. I don't think that should be a problem in terms of like overriding each other, since we do increment this each time we go through the loop. And then we also get rid of this destroy windows stuff. Okay, so I hope this works. So this should just be detect faces, and we'll have it the bucket and the key. Okay, so this is our function, right? This is the Lambda function. This is the handler. It basically loads the event, and then we get the key and the bucket out. We give it to this detect faces. This Lambda function should have permission to write to the S3, read and write from the S3 bucket, since we gave it that permission over here earlier. Has S3 full access. And that's the basic execution rule. So we'll do all that, and then we're going to upload this function as the function. So the only thing I think we need to do now is to install all the dependencies into this directory. Because I do think you need to do that for Lambda, since we need to upload all the dependencies. So it's like install dependencies locally, I think, something like that. If anyone happens to know off the top of the head, but like I think that's like that's not what I want. Maybe I'll just look for like Lambda Python dependencies. Oh, here. Okay, so target. Okay, let's try this. Oh, let me get into my. This is what I want. I hope this is doing what I think it's doing, which is like install all the stuff to this directory so that we can now finally do this thing, right?
I have not installed a Lambda
Though,
manually
oh, I
in
see.
a long time. I either use like Stackery or serverless
Oh, I
framework.
just realized. Yeah, I guess I just realized that's not how you want to do it either. It's like, I think you just want to do it here locally, like directly to here. It's just like this, actually. I'm also realizing this actually brings in a lot of dependencies, so I hope this actually fits in a Lambda. Like, I should have checked. That's the one thing I said like it didn't do any pre-work on purpose, so this would be like as live as possible. But that's probably the one thing I probably should have pre-worked is like, is this going to fit in the Lambda like size requirement? I don't know. Because yeah, we can make some layers or something, but I guess we'll find out in a sec. I guess.
Say Lambda layer.
It's a lot. I'm guessing. Okay, that's not going to fit, is it? 1.4 gigs. That's like, I think, beyond the normal Lambda. And limits. I'm pretty sure that's like, I'm realizing now, like,
You might have issue too with the video, because I know the temp
That's a good point.
directory storage has a limit as well of, I think, 512 megabytes or something. I had a colleague who built a video processor in Lambda with Lambda functions by like cutting up the video. She actually did a whole reInvent talk about it. Her name's Nikki Stone.
Okay, so let's
check it out.
Okay, let's change this up a bit. I'm just gonna drop this func thing here, and let's just change the example because I think it's like it's too much stuff. Sorry, folks who are following along. Let's just make it like a way simpler thing. Like let's just have it echo back like something, and like let's not try to do that because I think that's going to be way complicated. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I think for us to do the full thing, like that would require us to make a bunch of layers, and then or we have to someone's pointing out like just do it on Fargate. Like we'd have to change a lot of things to make this move up. So let's just have this. What should we do instead? So I think we have this name and key, and like let's just trying to think like what's interesting enough. I guess like let's just like rename it for now, and like we'll just do that, and then we can do some other stuff later. So
sounds good.
So we'll scope this a little bit down here, and so we really just only need Bodo to do this, and. All we're going to do here.
You don't need to add Bodo as a dependency.
Oh, you're right. Because I think for local development, I'll want it. But yes, it's a good point.
And also, if you want the latest version of Bodo, sometimes the Lambda environment.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. So let's go back to what we had earlier. Sorry about that. I totally forgot about like the size requirements, all that stuff.
No worries. Earlier,
so. Okay, so let's just have this end up writing a new object that is the same object. And actually, we'll just do this. I think like this should just work, right? If we just do copy from one S3 location to another, and so we can do this. Same bucket actually, and the object is just an other key. So we'll have it be like key plus. I don't know, just add an extension onto it for whatever. Like I don't know, we'll just making something up, right? And then we'll copy. So let's just run that. Oh, and
You're
I don't have to check anymore.
Getting some kudos for being brave and doing this genuinely live.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, if we're gonna do this, if we're gonna do a stream, like, should just do it for real if possible. Oops, did I miss something when I created my? So let's go back to this. Not liking this.
Funk.
Well, I also think it's good just to see kind of what your troubleshooting process is, because I feel like a lot of times we don't get to see that on live stream. So that's another aspect of it too.
And then what I'll probably do is, like, once I get this going in the next few minutes, then I'll switch back to the Node example, and then we can kind of like, we can either try to implement the same thing in Node or actually like kind of do some additional stuff on the Node side, since I did promise we would end up doing some of that. Do that here. Okay, so what failed here? Unable to, it's weird, error putting S3 notification configuration. This is just, but this is on this notification. Okay, so these are both, I guess this I can understand, because this is, if the function didn't get created correctly, then it doesn't have the correct destination. This I'm not sure I understand, because it says validation exception on my function, but this looks correct to me in that I'm creating an asset of this func. Let me see what I missed in my examples here. Like, I'm literally copying this example where I had this lambda function.
What is it? Great copies or something. Great steals. Good does something and great steals. I can't remember the saying. But yeah, I mean, this is actual development here. is going and trying to find something that works, and then.
It's here. The I was giving it the object, and not the ARN. So I was just comparing this. I think that's probably the big difference. So let's try that one more time. So yeah, I think this was expecting the ARN and not the object.
Good artist copy, great artist steal. That's
yes.
Oh man, that's good one.
Okay, this time this worked. So I'm glad we figured that out. All right. This I'm blaming on you guys. This is like AWS is taking a long time to create this thing. No, I'm just joking. So let's actually open up. Let's actually get. Oh, I have to wait for this to finish so I can actually upload to test. Give it one more sec. Okay, there we go. So so now everything. Oh wait, that failed too. So I got everything up to the bucket notification is still not correct. So my configuration for this, where is that? Oh, here. What did I miss here? Oh, I don't need this. This looks right. Like we have, this is the event I want to subscribe to, object created, and this is the topic I want it to fire against.
But it sends it to.
Yeah. that seems right. I'm surprised that doesn't just like not clear from this what it doesn't like. It says unable to validate the following destination configurations. I don't really know what that means. I guess I can go Google that while I try to run up one more time.
As Lee troubleshoots, Andrew, do you want to recap for us?
So for folks that are now just tuning into the show, you are watching Howdy Partner. My name is Andrew Park. I'm a Partner Solutions Architect at AWS, and AM here's also a Partner Solutions Architect here at AWS. And today we are joined by Lee Zen, engineering with Pulumi, and we are going through a couple demos on how you can create a couple applications using Pulumi. So if this is your first time tuning into the channel, make sure to subscribe and make sure to drop some questions in the channel, in the chat, so that Lee can answer any of your questions.
It's weird because all the initial errors, all the things like first Google are like, you have to make sure you have the bucket and the topic. But I do have the bucket and the topic.
This is like that circular dependency thing that always seems to come up.
Well, what's the interesting thing here is though we do have the bucket and we do have the topic. Like they've already been created in previous runs. And actually, like even if we were to run this from scratch, the way Pulumi works is that we would detect these as dependents of this, and so these would be created prior to attempting to create this. So we compute the graph, the dependency graph, before we attempt to do anything. So it's almost like I have like. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, is there a missing IAM?
I was just thinking that too. Like, I wonder if I somehow don't have like permissions somehow.
Right. I would think you would need to allow either S3 to trigger the SNS topic or SNS topic to receive.
I just wanted to like, when I go to the Pulumi console, like, yeah, for sure the bucket does exist. Like I click this, it's like, okay, there's the bucket. So just showing off the console here. But then like here this also exists. Like this is the topic you can see, and it is subscribed to the Lambda function we created. So that's all there. Yeah. The only thing that doesn't seem to be there is oddly enough, like allowing me to create the bucket notification. And it's actually not clear what permissions I don't have to create that bucket permission. Must also grant okay, this is probably the part I missed. I see. So I think I need to attach this to the topic, I guess. This is, I assume, what it is that I missed.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, look, the service, the principal is S3, right? So it's allowing S3 to actually publish to that topic.
Okay. It's always everything comes back to IAM. So I assume there's like some topic. Yeah. So there's a topic policy. So okay, let's do this, and let's go create that. All right. I'm glad we figured that out. So let's create a topic policy. Oops. Yeah, let's put this down first, and then we just copy and paste this. That's not what I want. I just want this, I think. And this, I think, just takes an ARN and a fully formed policy as the JSON. So the ARN is the topic ARN. Topic ARN, and then the policy is, and we'll just do this. This is the JSON we want, and we'll just have to do this because obviously these have to be like escaped basically.
Yep. And then you'll have to replace the resource in that policy.
Oh, I see here. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is actually where I could have copied. I should have just copied and pasted this actually, because what we're going to do is we're going to use. Okay. So now we finally get to talk about applies.
Oh.
And in Pulumi, one of the things that I guess the way things work is when we talk about these values, they're eventual values, and so that's part of what apply does. Is apply is basically a way to do eventual values, or to use. You can think of them as promises, basically. And so that's actually what's happening with the apply. So we're going to actually, because we want to. So like, you would think you'd be able to just here, be able to type in like bucket.id, right?
Right.
But you can't, because this value may not be known yet during program execution. And so what we want is to actually use these constructs in Pulumi, which are basically the ways that we construct the, like, it's like a future or an awaitable in Node. So we can do Pulumi dot all, dot output dot all. And so we take a list of these outputs we care about. So it'll be bucket ID, it's bucket and what was it, topic. So basically it says, hey, like, wait for these things to actually like exist. So we'll have, so it was the ID and the name and the topic are like, wait for these values to actually like exist. And now that they do exist, so we have an example here, like you can run this Lambda. So and so this is the vals. And so now we can actually,
this is a Python Lambda, not an AWS.
This is a Python, this is a Python Lambda at this point, yes. And so now we're going to actually use those two things. And so vals is an array of these two values. And so here, oops, sorry, it's very hard to use the editor in such a huge font. But let me get rid of some of these example IDs and stuff. And so this is all the same, right? But here, I guess this would have to be, okay, I'm going to hard code this for now since we happen to know this. Oh, wow, I didn't realize you have to have the resource. Okay, so this, we can get rid of this whole thing, right? This is just the ARN of our topic.
Right.
So this is vals 0.
I was going to ask though,
I'm sorry,
how
vals 1
do
actually.
you deal with I don't want to call them constants, but they're like values like region or account ID, which you could get like through programmatic call. Like you could do a call to SDS against the token, for example, that you're using, and get out the account ID from that. But in general, is there a best practice or a way to interact with those types of?
Yeah. That's actually, a lot of those are, so a couple things, like one of the cool, I guess I'll mention a couple things. One is that in the provider itself, all those values are available. So if we go back to the documentation, so in the AWS provider, there's a, I actually don't know if it's documented here exactly, but like if we go into the here, oh wait, no, sorry, this is, I think it's documented.
I saw a provider resource up level.
This actually lets you create multiple providers, so you can actually have, like, for example, like one of the common things you might do is like you want to loop over every region. Yeah. So you create a provider for each region, and then you loop over all those providers. The thing I was going to say is like you could use some of these functions, like you could use like get caller identity, yes, right, or get region. So you can use these as part of doing that, but they're also embedded within the provider itself when you're using it. Okay, someone's mentioning the last ID is wrong. So the source ARN is the bucket. So this is, I guess, should this be the bucket ARN, I guess, not the bucket name. Thanks. And okay, so think that should be it. And we have this. Okay. So hopefully this policy is correct. And
We'll find out quick if it isn't.
we'll find out pretty soon. Oh, did I miss something? Invalid syntax. What? Did I miss a quote? Apply. Output. Oh, I think I'm guessing I'm missing just the closing parens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Oh.
Add a range
And
exception on your index.
that's odd. So that should be, let's see. Well, so Pulumi output.all takes this and should create a, see, it's like this. So it was treating that as one tuple, but really it should just be like these two. Topic policy has a problem. Policy contains an invalid JSON character A. What? Okay, and these need to be coded.
Got it.
Of course, because
Code is very specific. It does exactly
yes.
what you tell it to do.
All right.
Okay, that looks better.
And that all got worked or no? No, I didn't like my topic. Oh, no, that's right. I just scrolled too far. So yeah, 2 created. So now we're all good. Okay,
Nice.
finally. And so now we can actually try like doing this thing. So let's try that, I guess. So oops. So we can do and we'll just copy. Well, let's do like we'll just make the requirements like AWS S3 CP requirements. Cool. Oops. All right. So
cool.
now let's do, yeah, so that's one of the nice things you can, because it's an actual value, right? So we don't have to like copy and paste it. It's just, that's the value. No, okay. I was like, where's the, our function didn't run. And I wonder if we, yes.
There, yeah, that'll happen, won't it?
Right, that's probably what you need. Okay, let's try again. And if this doesn't work after updating the code, then I'll probably move on to the node stuff. So we can kind of show the combo of the two. But actually, like you can see here, we updated the code just from running Pulumi up, which is nice. And actually, like one of the cool things is we detect that, right? Like all we did was just change the code here, but like I didn't change the source here. But as part of computing the program, it computes the hash of that file archive, and then it says like, oh, it's different, so we need to upload this again.
Oh wow, that's cool. Just like an MD5.
Yeah.
Again.
So let's upload a different file. Let's do like I don't know. Let's just shove this up there and see what happens. And S3LS. Oh boy. Okay, let's take a look at. I think I'm going to move on if that's okay with you guys. Basically, yeah, I'm assuming I have something wrong with the function itself. But like we created all the infrastructure necessary for this to work. But I think I've somehow screwed up the function somewhere. I guess we could take a quick peek, and take a quick peek at the function.
Go to those
But I did want to show
clock
some of the other cool stuff. I'm looking at the clock. What are some of the cool stuff in terms of let's see if at least it's getting executed. Oh, that's odd.
that usually means it didn't get the permissions set.
Yeah, what if I just messed up the permissions earlier with the? I know when we did the Lambda permissions. I wonder if I messed up some of the permissions. So okay, let's do the other stuff. And let me show you. I wanted to go through kind of. So we set up that stack, and I also wanted to go through kind of just like, we talked about stack references. I think maybe since we didn't do the whole face recognition thing, we can probably not do that either. I think I'll just go through some other interesting examples in a different language. And so just using some of the stuff in AWS X actually. So AWS X is what we call crosswalk for AWS. It's kind of a convenience library to do a bunch of stuff in AWS and kind of like abstract away a bunch of things. So one of the things I really like about this is how easy it is to do things with API Gateway. So we'll do that. And like originally I was going to do this where it connected to the whole face detection thing, but I think we're just going to not do that, and we're just going to like do API Gateway stuff because I should have played ahead, but it's okay. So we'll create now. So just for people who are watching, like and kind of like forgot, we've switched over now so our previous stuff we were writing everything in Python, and you can totally imagine like one team is writing in Python, and now we're writing everything in Node. This is like a totally different program, and you can mix and match. Like this program can reference things from the other program. Like if I just undo everything I just wrote, you can do the stack reference stuff, and you can refer to the things used in the other program if you want. We're going to do, like I said, just a simple example here. So one of the things you can do is like this within AWS X, we kind of like wrapped a bunch of the stuff in AWS. So here, like we'll create an API gateway, and this takes a bunch of arguments. The thing that we care about most here is just the routes, and this takes some set of routes, and we'll create our first route. And you can create a number of different types of routes. So, for example, we can create a static route. So there's a I think it's called a path. Yeah, so if we get a path, this will end up creating a static route. So let's like create we'll just stick like a dub thing here, and then we'll create, like sorry, this is I want local path to be dub, and the path will actually just be like, I don't know, site. I think this should work. I actually haven't done this recently, but let's try. So actually, this is going to show you some deletes too, because earlier we had the stack reference. And I think it should, let me see. Oh no, we didn't have any other resources here, so this should just do this. So you can actually see like what it's going to actually end up happening is like, even though I wrote just like 5 lines of code, we're actually going to do a bunch of stuff. It's going to create a bucket to house this local path stuff, and it's going to map that. It's going to also have a bucket object within that bucket, which is our index file, and then it's going to create a role and a bunch of like REST API stuff to basically like host the stuff that we just said. So let's not do that quite yet. The other thing we should do is like actually export the value of like the endpoint, and so we can just do this. Is it this? Right, maybe it is just a URL. Yeah, there we go.
So
So again, in the previous.
Is JavaScript and TypeScript more of a primary language for you than Python too?
Yeah, I think I think I end up writing more in TypeScript, at least like as of late. So it's just like kind of more used to that for sure. And so this path, there's no path here, but if I go to /site, that should work.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if you can see this. So yeah, so like that. So that you just go to this, and then it's like, oh, sorry. If you go to this, because it's /site, then it just works, right? So that's like very easy. And similarly, you can add other routes. And so, that was a static route. So you can see how easy it is to just like deploy a static site hosted behind an API gateway. And like, but what if you want to actually have, what API gateway is meant for, which is like APIs. So we can create a path like called like, API. And we can have a method like get. And by the way, here's like another example of like the niceties of like using a real language, like, autocomplete. It's like, oh, here are the things, right, that you should be able to do. And we can actually just write our event handler here, like in line. So you can see here, this event handler could be, you can see it can be a callback or a function. So I can actually just write this as like event context. And I can just like, I can just write this like this. Let's see if I miss something. It doesn't like this.
Maybe you have to do some casting.
No, I'm trying to remember I think maybe if the event handler itself is somehow, it doesn't like this. Why?
Look like it's a specific type.
It's not assignable to type proxy event. Oh, I know why. It should be event. I think, if I understood that correctly. No. Let me cheat real quick and look at some examples. Like that's always the way to do it, right? It's like, oh, like I don't remember how this works. Like, okay, let me just like look at examples and like, I'll just look at this, for example, and I'm guessing this is, I'm guessing like someone's already done this, like here. Okay, so you're right. You have to return, you can't return a string, you have to return like what you would typically return in an API gateway response, which makes sense. So like, okay, let's do that. And so here, this could just be like hello world, and this should be okay. Like it should accept what we want here. So here, so now it's all good. So if we run this, this will update our infrastructure. And so you can see actually, again, interestingly, like, it's creating a bunch of stuff. It's not touching anything we already deployed, right? It's not touching the S3 bucket, the S3 object, or any of the stuff we already touched. It's only going to go in ahead and update the API parts it needs to, again, because we're moving, we're not trying to do anything crazy here, and then create this function. So let's do that.
And as this is going, if you were to pull in the other stack, that would just be from the output, right? You would just reference that stack.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we can bring that back actually, so we can have the reference. Oops, of course. Okay, so this finished this. So we can actually curl that, right? We can curl Pulumi stack output endpoint and /API. So we get hello world. from here. So yeah, we could actually have it. We can like, for example, we can do this ref thing, and we can do this. So this is what we had before to get the bucket name from the other stack, and we can actually just stick that into here. So like you can imagine, like using like this. But this you can see is an output. So we actually need to apply that. So one thing we could also try to do is we would have to like transform this into something that we can actually use. So it's a little tricky because of the way we have it embedded in here. We could turn this to a callback factory. I'm also realizing like we have like 5 minutes left. So I'll just say like what you would do typically is you would you could write this as a factory function. Oops, I'll put this back to hello world. And
you can totally go over time.
Okay, sure. So let's do that then. Okay, so let's do that. So the event handler, if we go back to this, this can really be a function, or it can be a callback, and a callback can be a callback factory. And a callback factory basically lets us create a function that does some of the, basically like lets us do more like setup basically. So let's do that. So we can actually do like AWS.
So we're getting a question from chat around the diffs. Chat has been noticing, and you mentioned earlier a bit about how Pulumi is running diffs against the environment. You mentioned like a hash earlier too on that file archive that we're uploading. The question here is, GenKids asks, as a frequent Terraform user, I'm used to seeing diffs in a verbose way. I've seen, send the outputs diffs certain values. Is there a way to see what was set before and what will the value become after the change?
Yes, totally. Let me show that real quick, I guess, before I go down this callback path. So let's change a bunch of stuff here. Let's do like, so we have this output bucket. Let's change like, I don't know. I guess let's change this file. And then we'll also, I guess, like add some, I don't know, I guess maybe we can add like a tag to this. I guess, let's see, probably not the easiest thing. Let's just change this to like hello world. There's actually some pretty deep stuff that I was going to show too, but I don't think we're going to get to that. Like one of the things you can do is you can do like stack transformations or function or resource transformations. Again, like going into the power of real code. And so, okay, so I'll get to that stuff. So here's the diff, right? So you want to see like what is going to be diff. So you can actually, there's this details thing here. And so when you do the details, it shows you the detailed diff of what the values are going to change from to. So here, for example, like this is going to be, and then here we don't know what it's going to be since this is going to be something AWS provides in some cases, right? So that's where you see this output thing. Like it could be changed by AWS, in which case it will be something we don't know what it is yet. So there it's going to be like a conservative diff, but in cases where we do know what it's going to change to, we will show what it will change, from and to. So here you have the from, and then you have the to. So that's kind of the detailed diff view. And so where was I going with this? Oh, okay, so one thing you can actually do is you can do a stack transformation or a resource transformation. So actually, like let's do that. One of the cool things about this is I'm just gonna copy some of this. So we have this API here, and I was saying like, oh, you know what? Like maybe I could add a tag to this function, right? But this function's like way deep in here, and like there's no easy way to there's no like tags thing here, right? And like how do I even tag this thing, Like there's no function here. And so you can do this, and a lot of this is because like, well, it's like you might be like, oh, well, if you could break it out and you could write the function as an object, and like then you could add the tags onto it there. But then that would require to like exit this abstraction. Like you would have to exit the abstraction that we have here. But instead, you could write a transformation. And here you can see we have this transformations option. So I'm just going to take this out. And so what we're going to do is pass that as a resource option. And so here we have this resource option transformations. And if we'll just say if it's like if it's of a certain type, and so in our case, like if we look at we use Pulumi stack, here you can see there's one of the things that's in here is a function. So if the type is like, say, this Lambda function, we can actually like go ahead and just like mess with it, so to speak. And we could, for example, add to the properties tags. So like if I do this, oh, sorry, I actually want to merge the options here. So and then we'll just return the ops just as they were.
I think you're missing a comma after the object brace.
Oops, I think this should be args.props.
But on line 37.
Oh yeah, thanks. And so what we're gonna what this is gonna try to do is basically like if we have this type, then like we're gonna actually try to transform it and return back this transform set of options.
That's cool.
Actually, again, haven't done this live, so this may totally fail. But we'll see. Oh, interesting. Oh, here, yeah, so here, okay. I was like, oh, it didn't do what but it did. So if you see here, this tags difference. So this actually is what's adding the tags. So if we actually look at details, if we scroll up to where the function is, you can see it's adding this tags, additional parameter tags to the Lambda function. And if I go ahead and deploy, then we updated this. You can see it was actually like, it only updated one thing, even though the diff had like 5. And that's part of the conservative diffing, because when we went to do the preview, it said like, well, if this goes from X to Y, where I don't know why, if Y changes, then I'll have to change all these other things. But because during the actual execution of the program, it didn't change, we don't change any of those things. So now if I go to the actual resource here, if I find the function here, you can see it's tagged the way I wanted it to, even though I had there's no actual function thing that I created, if that makes any sense.
Generating the function. Yeah. What's cool and what I could see is like you could set these transforms so tagging, right? Everybody.
Right.
PSA from a PSA. Tag your stuff, like always tag your stuff, period. But setting that tag at a global level and being able to import it like as a library, right? And then just automatically apply it. That's super powerful, right?
Yeah, we actually have a blog post showing exactly how to do that. And actually, so you can see this transform applied to this particular resource, the API. And so like this transform will execute against all the child resources of this component. Right. But you can actually register what's called a stack transformation. And the stack is like the root level object of the whole program. And you can then like basically execute this transform. And you could totally imagine just ripping this whole thing out. Like you don't even care if it's this type. Like you can be like, hey, for everything, right? If it supports tags, you should add tags. You could do that. And so yeah, there's a nice blog post on doing something like that.
Your billing people will thank you for adding tags.
100%.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I can keep going if you want. I guess it really depends on like I don't know how the timing works for this, but I hopefully people who are watching got a pretty good sense of like the power of using real languages with infrastructure as code. But there's like tons of stuff we can keep going into. Like we can talk about unit testing, for example. We could talk about and for some of those things, I have pre-canned examples. I think like I'm realizing like. Maybe I should just use some pre-canned ones that I've run through, maybe. But
you got major, and the reason why I asked earlier if Python is maybe a secondary language for you, you got earlier props for doing all this stuff live. But I wanted to showcase that you were doing all that stuff live in a language that not necessarily your primary language that you write in every day.
Yeah.
That's
so
amazing.
Actually,
Man, you like we have to take a moment to recognize that. I will.
Thanks.
At least. Yeah, let's leave it up to chat. If you want to see something else, we could stay extra time a little bit, maybe 10 minutes or so. I was curious too, if chat doesn't come up with anything. Maybe do you want to show off the SaaS side of things a bit?
Sure. Yeah. Let me show one thing real quick. This is not AWS, but one of the cool things here is just like the way this works in terms of this is actually in Python, and so I wrote this a while back where this is similar to what we did earlier, where like we have this functions thing, and here you can see like there's this functions. This is just like a lambda, basically, right? But one of the cool things with this is you can actually like write a test. And we have this like mock here. I don't know if hopefully this is big enough. And you can see like we can actually do all these different tests to make sure this actually works. So like if we just run, if I activate this, where am I? No, I don't think I had a virtual environment for this, but if I run PyTest, test. I don't know. QA test. Okay. Well, sorry. I won't show this then. But I thought I had PyTest set up. But if you have PyTest set up, then what will happen is you'll actually end up executing these unit tests. And one of the cool things about those unit tests is because we're using like real code. You'll see the most interesting one is this one, where we actually import the module itself, which is defined here, and we actually make sure that the main in here is actually callable, like that the endpoint we define, the entry point rather that we define is actually a callable entry point. And so here, sorry, similar to earlier, like we defined the entry point, like the handler, as get demo. And in the test, we end up testing that get demo, which is passed in here, that the entry point is actually something that you can actually is a callable function in the actual module that we're importing. So it's like a nice example of just like how flexible things are in terms of being able to test and understand what's going on.
Cool.
So anyway, just wanted to share that. Yeah, I guess if there's some certain things that people wanted to do chat-wise, I could try to do in like 5 minutes, but otherwise, also happy to say farewell, I guess.
Or if there's any questions for Lee specifically about Pulumi, definitely like to use this opportunity to answer questions.
What about you, Andrew? Did you have any questions for Pulumi? I know you're a big fan of Pulumi.
I am a big fan of Pulumi.
You're actually one of the big reasons why Pulumi and Lee are on the stream today. You initiated a lot of this.
So, a big part of Pulumi is you can also just use it in general to manage your infrastructure. I know for me, one of the first things I did was I just spun up a 3-node EKS cluster to manage it using Pulumi. One question I do have for you guys is, is it on your roadmap to include Fargate support? in the upcoming future?
Yeah, actually, I mean, you can use Fargate with EKS. So if you use the EKS package, so if I bring up Pulumi EKS, one of the options in Pulumi EKS is to use Fargate, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
So like when you set this up, let's see, I have the docs right here. Here we go. Here. Okay, I can't find it, but you should be able to, but B, I guess even here, if you don't, like, you can always bring in your own EKS cluster. In which case you can create an EKS cluster, and then as part of creating an EKS cluster, just like say Fargate true. And so you can always do that when you're using this.
Oh, sure. Oh, I'll keep that in mind. I think we have a question in chat. Let's see. How does Pulumi handle remote state and state locking?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Pulumi kind of has you can have your choice of backends for Pulumi. Like earlier, like you saw every time I was using the Pulumi console, that's using the Pulumi SaaS. The Pulumi SaaS provides state storage and locking for if you have like multiple people working on the same projects and stacks, then it ensures that no two people can deploy the same stack at the same time. You can also optionally use a self-managed backend. So basically, like you could, for example, keep the state file stored in S3 or Azure Blob Storage or whatever other cloud storage you want. And depending on kind of like, so for example, if you're using like Google Cloud Storage, like there actually is like some notion of locking in the sense that like you can't like write to the same file at the same time, and there's some like consistency guarantees. But it doesn't have like the same obviously set of functionality. So for example, like in the Pulumi SaaS, we have things like policies. You can run policy as code on your own using the open source. But if you want to ensure that policy is executed on all stacks, then you'll want to use the Pulumi SaaS because it's much easier to ensure that policy as code is used on all stacks. And then similarly, like other things like audit logs or just the history of each of your stacks. Like earlier I showed like the stack I was deploying, where was it? Here we're looking at this, like if we go look at the stack here, we actually have a full history of all the various updates we made, like whether they were successful or not. There's information around like what if this was connected to a GitHub repo, like we would have information about what it's being deployed from, like various other things like that. So that's some of the nice benefits of using the Pulumi SaaS. You get all this integration around managing your state and then all the metadata around what's going on with that state.
I passed out after you said you could store it in S3 because you said a bunch of other words that just like they don't compute up here. I don't know what they were. It's like Westworld. Like I couldn't hear you whenever you were talking. I just heard store it in S3. That's all I heard.
Yeah, so you can sort of say, yeah. So if you on the command line, no, it's cool. Like when you do Pulumi login, you can see like I'm logged in against the SaaS backend, but but you can also pass it a -c flag, and that's like that could be like you could basically do like Pulumi login, S3 blah blah blah.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, with -c, like you can't just do that.
Right.
About it.
Right.
Yep.
Cool. We do have one really important thing to ask you.
Oh, here we go.
Andrew loves this part. You've got a lot of people on chat saying that they're excited to test out Pulumi actually.
Great.
And projects and things. But Andrew and I need you to pick one of 3 ways to sign off. This is Howdy Partner after all, so it's a bit of a Western show. I live in Texas, so I like to give a little Western flair. I'm probably the least Texas person. But that being said, we like to choose between Giddy Up, Happy Trails, or Y'all Come Back Now. You hear? How would you like?
For sure, it's the last one. I mean, gotta be the last one.
Okay.
No questions.
All right, we'll keep that in
So
mind.
do we say it at the same time, or how does it work?
Oh yeah, I love that. I'll give us a countdown. Actually, we've never done that. You're improving on the show in real time. This is great. But for anybody who's joined us today, who's new to Howdy Partner, be sure to follow the AWS Twitch channel. We do this every Monday and every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific. We bring in a new partner every time. Lee joined us here from Pulumi. If you didn't get to see the whole stream or you missed parts of the stream, this actually becomes a video on demand in the section. If you enter in exclamation video, which I just did into chat, you'll get to see a way to go look for those. There are lots of episodes of Howdy Partner out there and lots more to come. Wednesday, I got to give a shout out. It's one of my favorite partners. Auth0 will be on the show. So for all things identity, access management, and user management, if those things sound hard to you, which they are, so they should, come join us on Wednesday to learn about that. Like I said, every Monday, every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Pacific, I'll have a new partner on. Check out Pulumi. Before we sign off, Lee, what would you tell somebody who's never used Pulumi? Where should they start? What's the first thing they should do?
Yeah, I think just go to the website. There's a getting started. It walks you through getting set up with your cloud provider. Walks you, like, you can click on the AWS one to walks you through how to get started with AWS and Pulumi, and it walks you through getting your first program up and running. And then there's lots of guides and tutorials on Pulumi. Like we have a very active community Slack, so feel free to join us on Slack. Like I'm there, lots of people are there, and if you go to slack.pulumi.com, you can just join the Slack, and super easy to be involved with the community.
I believe too, you might be putting these examples up on a GitHub repo. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'll stick these onto Pulumi, the Pulumi TV GitHub repo. That's actually like a place where I do a weekly episode of this thing called Modern Infrastructure Wednesday. We have a YouTube channel called Pulumi TV. So if you want to watch more Pulumi videos, you can go to youtube.com/Pulumi TV, or just actually go to pulumi.tv. It'll redirect you. And all the examples that we went over today are there, as well as previous episodes that I've done in the past are all there as well.
Okay, Andrew, any parting words?
I would echo everything that Lee just said. But I would also say I would definitely check Pulumi out. It definitely changed my outlook on infrastructure as a code, and I would recommend Pulumi 10 times out of 10. So definitely make sure to check out the things that I do. So
10 times out of 10. That's
high
praise. High praise.
Well, thanks a lot for having me on the show. This was great. I really enjoyed hanging out and doing some live coding, even if I embarrassed myself a few times. But it was fun.
You were incredible. I cannot sing your praises.
That was the bravest partner we've had on the show so far.
Agreed. Agreed. Thank you, Lee, so much for joining, and thank you all for watching. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, and y'all come back now. You hear? Is that right? Okay. All right. I'll count us down. 1, 2, 3. Y'all come back.
Y'all come back now. You hear?
We'll see you Wednesday, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in.